microphone on. Alright, it's recording.
Hello and welcome to my video about podcasts, in which I, that guy sitting down, will talk about what they are, the early history of podcasting, online platforms for podcasters, and other related topics.
Podcasts are audio or video files which users can download and consume at a time and place which suits them. As such, users can access these files while offline and don't have to wait for scheduled times on specific days to consume this content, as they would for a program broadcast on a radio station or TV channel. Also, much like radio or TV programs, specifically chat shows, podcasts often feature one or more hosts accompanied by one or more guests discussing a particular topic or topics, while other podcasts are hosted by a single narrator holding a monologue. Historically speaking, the first ever podcast, which was basically an MP3 file made available on an RSS feed for download, was produced in 2003 by journalist Christopher Lydon and software developer Dave Weiner, in which the former conducted an interview with the latter. The term podcasting, used in reference to this new form of broadcast media, first appeared within a year of that first ever podcast being produced, and its coinage is ascribed to journalist Ben Hammersley, whose 2004 article for The Guardian about online radio and Lydon's pioneering use of this media features this term containing the ing suffix. Since the first podcast was recorded, and since that word was first mentioned, a number of websites have established themselves as podcasting platforms where producers of this kind of media can upload their products and where these producers' target audience can go to consume that content. The first ever such podcasting platform, according to International Podcast Day, was Liberated Syndication, shortened to Libsyn, which was established in 2004 and is still active 15 years on. Not long after Libsyn, the better known iTunes service, owned by Apple, started hosting podcasts in 2005 and has become a major aggregator of podcasts for its users. Other than iTunes, users can listen to podcasts on websites like Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. As alluded to a moment ago, users can listen or watch podcasts wherever they want, thus making this form of media a very convenient one.
Based on research by the Reuters Institute from this year, although the most common place this form of media is consumed is at home, other places where podcasts are consumed include the workplace, public or private transport, and even at the gym. This mobile consumption of podcasts is in large part due to the widespread use of smartphones, which allow users to download application software, aka apps, like that provided by Stitcher to consume this content.
There is a great variety of genres to which podcasts out there belong, and a great variety of topics on which their producers choose to focus, as well as how long a single podcast can last for and how frequently new ones are released by their producers, given that there are no limits set on these aspects on this kind of media, except those placed on the producers by themselves. Content-wise, the podcasting platform TuneIn provides a list of genres to choose from on their podcast page. Example, arts and culture podcasts, history podcasts, technology podcasts, and so on. In the history podcasts page, one can find whole series of podcasts in which each podcast focuses on a different historical topic. Example, Melvin Bragg's In Our Time, and other whole series of podcasts which focus on particular periods of history. Example, Paul Cheall's Fighting Through from Dunkirk to Hamburg, World War II. Duration-wise, there are podcasts which last for less than an hour to those which last for many hours. Using the above examples, many of Bragg's podcasts can last for 50 plus minutes, while others last for 40 plus minutes. On the other hand, many of Cheall's podcasts last for over an hour. One even lasted for over 4 hours, though his shortest is 90 minutes long. Lastly, frequency-wise, some podcast producers release new content on a regular basis, say once a week or month, while others, more occasionally, say once every 2 or 3 months. Again, using the above examples, Bragg's podcasts are released every Thursday, though some of them are repeats rather than brand new ones. On the other hand, Cheall's podcasts are released less frequently. Example, sometimes 2 podcasts are released in a given month, while in other months only 1 is released. As mentioned earlier, there are podcasts which cover a broad range of topics and those which cover a narrow range of topics. In turn, some podcasts have attracted and keep attracting a large audience due to their broad range of topics, while others attract a much smaller audience due to their much narrower range of topics, though this need not be a sign of failure. What is interesting is that many podcasts which regularly attract a niche audience do so because they deliberately cover very niche topics. Example, psycholinguistics from the broader field of linguistics. Of course, choosing such a niche topic for one's series of podcasts to cover is likely going to lead to a much smaller audience being attracted to those podcasts. Nevertheless, if no one else's podcasts are covering that same topic, then the podcaster covering it could establish him or herself as an authority in that field in the eyes and ears of his or her current and future audience with no competition. Even in the face of competition, producing and releasing such podcasts regularly and in a certain quality can foster brand loyalty when customers consistently choose to order products or services from a particular company as opposed to from any other company offering the same products or services. So rather than lowering a given podcast's chances of success, covering niche topics can actually raise its chances of success. Commercially speaking, given how widespread this kind of media is and how popular some podcasters are,
it is not surprising for one's podcast to serve as a platform for recommending or advertising someone else's product or service. As mentioned earlier, as podcasts are often consumed in no fixed place, advertisers can make use of this form of media to reach their target audiences throughout the day. According to research by the Interactive Advertising Bureau from 2018, this approach seems to be paying off, as ad revenue from podcasts in the USA in 2017 alone reached well over $300 million and is predicted to more than double by 2020. Also worth noting is that rather than being annoyed by adverts while consuming podcasts, audiences do not seem to mind them as they trust that the revenue from such adverts will go to fund the very podcasters whose content they enjoy. Moreover, they actually have a preference for host-read ads, i.e. adverts read out loud by their very presenters. Example: adverts on Scroobius Pip's Distraction Pieces podcasts are narrated by the presenter himself. Therefore, advertising on podcasts is not only lucrative but also welcome by target audiences.
In summary,
podcasts have been around since 2003, though they got their name a year later. They can be downloaded from podcasting platforms like iTunes, and they can be consumed at home, at work, or on the go. There are no limits set on how long a given podcast should last for or how often new ones should be released by podcast producers, except those set by themselves. Podcasts can cover a broad or narrow range of topics, and they are often produced with an interested audience in mind, however big or small that audience might be. And lastly, advertisers have much to gain by advertising on this form of media, especially if their adverts are narrated by the hosts of those podcasts themselves.
I will end this video with an analysis of Melvin Bragg's podcast series, In Our Time, mentioned a few times already in this video, in which I will look at who this presenter is, his style of hosting, what his podcasts typically contain, the quality of these podcasts, and what I like about them. Bragg is a veteran TV and radio presenter who I remember presenting the South Bank show on ITV many years ago. He has also presented shows on the BBC, both on TV and radio. And he brings his calm approach and softly spoken voice to his podcast series, In Our Time, which is also a BBC product. His podcasts regularly feature guests who he brings into the conversation at certain points to provide more detail about the topic of a given podcast. Example, to his podcast titled Rousseau on Education, about 18th century writer and composer Jean-Jacques Rousseau, released earlier this October, he invited 3 academic guests, specifically 3 professors, each from a separate university, to discuss Rousseau's life and work and share their expert knowledge with his listeners. Quality-wise, his podcasts seem to be produced at a studio without any background noise, using high-quality microphones to capture his and his guests' voices and produce clear sound for his listeners to appreciate. Lastly, what I like about In Our Time is that it's about history, and I like history. I also like how each podcast covers a different topic in history, so I can learn something new, or learn something new about something I already knew about. I also like how Bragg's podcasts have guests who bring their own knowledge to a conversation, so his podcasts are not mere monologues. But even so, I enjoy Bragg's style of presenting, which I have seen and heard over many years, and I appreciate learning something new from his programs. I hope you found this video interesting. Feel free to like or leave a comment below, and thank you for watching.